Hi everyone, welcome to another episode of the dyslexiaconnect.com dyslexia blog. Peter here. Today I'm going to be talking about common symptoms of dyslexia in spelling. In some previous videos I talked about the common symptoms of dyslexia in terms of reading and some things that we often see dyslexics do when they're trying to read something before they've gotten dyslexia treatment and dyslexia tutoring. Today I thought I would talk about some of the common signs that we see when they're trying to spell so that you have an easier time identifying dyslexia if you see it in a child, maybe your own child or somebody else's child if you're a teacher, for example. So let's go ahead and get started with those. One of the main things that we see is a difficulty with phonetic sounds when a dyslexic child is trying to spell. So to give you an example of this, if you ask them to spell the word pen, like I need a pen to spell my name with, they may spell the word P-I-N. And that is because they don't have what we call good phonemic awareness. Phonemic awareness means an awareness of what letters and letter combinations say and the sounds that they make. For dyslexics, this is very, very difficult, and this is one of the reasons why we emphasize learning these sounds during dyslexia tutoring, is because learning those sounds is difficult for them and it takes them some time to acquire those. So if you ask them to spell the word pen, they might spell that P-I-N because they're not really sure which letter says the eh sound. Particularly with short vowels can be very difficult for dyslexics, and it takes them a while to get those down and to differentiate between the sounds, such as the I that the I says, the short I, and the eh that the short E says. And there are a lot of other examples as well. With students that are more advanced, they may not be sure which vowel combinations say certain sounds. You may ask them which ones say the O sound, for example, and they might not really know. They might have a hard time naming any of those or recognizing them when they see in words. So that's number one right there. Another thing that they may have trouble with is, I should say that they tend to memorize spelling words. So to give you an example of this, they may get a spelling list in school on Monday and they may spend the whole week memorizing those words. Spelling test on Friday, they're able to do okay on it, get a decent grade, but then they completely forget all those spellings. They're not able to spell those words correctly again because they just simply have been memorizing how the words look. They don't actually know why the letters say certain things or how they work together and the different syllable types work together. They're just simply memorizing the spellings. One major sign of this, like I said, is that they memorize a bunch of words, but they're not really committed to long-term memory. After the test is done, they tend to completely forget those, or at least forget most of them, and when they have to spell those words again, they have a very difficult time doing so. They have a hard time coming up with those spellings. And they memorize words as a coping mechanism. They do that because they don't have good phonemic awareness of what letters and letter combinations say. So as a result, they memorize words to compensate. They try to spell them simply by how they look. So they think, and they read actually the same way. This is one of the reasons why dyslexics who have not received dyslexia tutoring and treatment tend to guess at words a lot. They don't know how to sound out words, and this translates into them having a difficult time spelling as well because they're simply not sure what letters and letter combinations say, and so that leads to difficulty in spelling. Another common symptom of dyslexia in spelling is that a student will misspell common sight words. Sight words are rule breakers. There are kind of a couple different terms that are used for those, but what we mean when we say a sight word or a rule breaker is that the word does not follow the typical rules of pronunciation in English and the typical syllable rules. I'll give you an example of this. The word does, D-O-E-S, like he does that every day. This is a sight word because O-E is a sound that is supposed to say O, like in the word toe, foe, friend or foe, F-O-E. The different words like that. In the word does, it doesn't do that. So does is what we call a sight word. For dyslexics, these are very problematic, even for the sight words and the rule breakers that they see on a regular basis. They may see words, of course, like does all the time. It's a very common word. Another one could be maybe what, for example. That's another one, W-H-A-T. And even though they see these on a regular basis, they're very difficult for them to memorize, and they have a hard time learning them, even though they may see them multiple times on the same page. This is another common sign of dyslexia when it comes to spelling. Dyslexics may also misspell words when copying them down, and typically copying spellings is very difficult and time-consuming for them. So if you put a board in front of them, a whiteboard or a chalkboard that has a bunch of words on it or some small sentences, and ask them to copy it, it's going to be very laborious and time-consuming for them. You'll probably see them sitting there writing. They may have to look up multiple times for every letter or every couple of letters. They will not be able to just take a look at it and then go down and write 3 or 4 words and then look back up again. They probably will not be able to do that. They'll probably sit there and it'll be very tough for them. It'll take a long time. And even when they take that time, they may have errors in their spelling and not realize it, even though they were copying something directly off of a board or maybe out of a book or something else that they're looking at. So this is another very, very common sign of dyslexia in spelling. Another common sign of dyslexia in spelling is inconsistent spelling. This one is really interesting. A student may spell a word one way when you ask them to spell it one day. You ask them to spell it again the next day, it's a completely different spelling. And it might be that both of those spellings are incorrect. So you'll ask them to spell it, and you could ask them, say, 5 or 6 days in a row to spell the exact same word. You might get 6 different spellings, a different spelling every single day for that same word. Very common symptom. Another common symptom of dyslexia in spelling is that spelling is just simply frustrating for the child. It's very difficult, they have a hard time with it, it's time consuming, and it doesn't seem to make sense necessarily that they're having this much difficulty. Maybe the child is of average or above intelligence and they're clearly bright, and it doesn't really make a lot of sense why they're having so much trouble learning to spell. And this is another common sign of dyslexia. In my video about common signs of dyslexia with reading, I mentioned that this is also a sign. If the child just seems to be having a hard time reading well, and yet they're of above average or above average intelligence, and they're just really having a lot of trouble, and reading is frustrating for them, and they don't want to do it, that's another common sign that there's something going on there, and it might be dyslexia. Also, an important thing to mention before I wrap up this video, as I mentioned in the previous videos, dyslexia can come with a variety of symptoms, and dyslexics can portray different symptoms from one dyslexic student to the next. So, if you're trying to spot these signs in a student, they may have 1 or 2 of the signs, not show the other ones, or they may clearly show all the signs. That's possible as well. So, it's important to realize, though, that these come in different combinations, and if you take 50 dyslexic students, the signs and symptoms of dyslexia they show, they may have some common ones, but they may show a great variety and a great contrast between them of the dyslexia symptoms they have and the degree and the severity of those symptoms as well. So that's an important thing to keep in mind when you're trying to identify dyslexia or think that you may be working with a dyslexic student. So thanks for watching our installment today. If you're interested in hearing more from us about dyslexia, please go ahead and subscribe to our channel here on YouTube. And you can also visit our website, of course, at www.dyslexiaconnect.com. We're also on Facebook and Twitter. And if you have any questions, please feel free, or comments, please feel free to post them. You can also go to our website, ask us a question via one of our contact forms. And if you're interested in our online dyslexia tutoring program, you can find more information about that at our website, www.dyslexiaconnect.com. So I hope you have a wonderful day. Thanks for watching. Bye-bye.